I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to find myself in a situation like this, staring blankly at the wall of our bedroom, the weight of betrayal hanging over me like a dark cloud. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Amanda for 5 years. I always thought we had a solid relationship. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but I believed we were in it together. Lately, though, something felt off. Amanda was different. It was subtle at first. She used to greet me with that genuine smile that lit up her whole face when I walked through the door. But recently the spark had dimmed. When I'd leave for work, she stopped saying, "I miss you." Now she just smiled, a polite, almost rehearsed smile, as if she was more relieved I was leaving than anything else. I brushed these feelings aside, telling myself I was being paranoid. I'd noticed other changes too. She'd been spending more time on her phone, her laughter ringing out in the kitchen as she chatted away with someone. At first, I thought she was just connecting with old friends, but as the weeks went by, her late-night texting sessions started to eat away at my comfort. The late-night Netflix marathons we used to have turned into her needing some alone time. Little things, the way she'd quickly close her phone when I entered the room or how she'd seem distracted when I tried to talk about my day, added up. Something was nagging at me, but I didn't want to confront my fears head-on. The breaking point came one evening when I decided to surprise her with a romantic dinner. I got off work early, picked up her favorite takeout, and even bought a bottle of her preferred wine. As I walked in, I heard laughter echoing from the living room. It was Amanda's laugh, the light, carefree sound I'd fallen in love with, but something didn't sit right. I crept closer, the good intentions in my hands quickly fading as I overheard her on the phone, breathless with excitement. "I can't wait to see you again," she said, her tone filled with a giddy energy that felt foreign to me. My heart sank like a stone. I didn't need to hear more. I stood frozen, half listening, half wishing I could convince myself I was imagining it. But deep down I knew she was cheating on me. In that moment everything shattered. I dropped the takeout bag and the sound echoed in the silence like a gunshot. Amanda's laugh stopped immediately. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't want to confront her right then. I needed a plan. I slid out of the apartment, my mind racing as I drove aimlessly around town. I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak coursing through me. I couldn't believe my wife, the woman I trusted with everything, was betraying me. I spent the following days gathering evidence, piecing together the puzzle of her infidelity. I noticed new clothes in her closet, receipts for fancy dinners I hadn't been a part of, and late-night text messages that left me feeling sick. Every little sign screamed infidelity, and I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. It was time to confront her. The day I decided to confront Amanda, I felt like a soldier gearing up for battle. My hands trembled as I rehearsed what I would say. As soon as I got home, I found her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and smiled, that same fake smile that had been haunting me. "Aren't you going to ask me how my day was?" she said cheerfully. "Actually, I need to talk to you about something serious," I replied, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind. She put her phone down, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "I know what you've been doing, Amanda." The color drained from her face and her eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" I launched into the details, everything I'd seen, heard, and suspected. I watched as her expression shifted from shock to annoyance. I was ready for a fight, but I wasn't expecting the wave of lies that came crashing down on me. "I don't know what you think you know, Jake, but you're wrong," she claimed, her tone defensive. "I've been busy with work and you're being paranoid." It was infuriating. I felt myself slipping into that dark pit of anger and sadness. She wasn't even trying to deny it outright. Instead, she was spinning a web of excuses, trying to convince me that I was losing my mind. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming, and all I could do was stare at her in disbelief. As the confrontation continued, I felt my world unraveling. I could see the woman I loved standing before me, but I also saw a stranger. A part of me wanted to fight for our marriage, but another part whispered that I was standing in front of a liar. I felt crushed and empty, like the air had been sucked out of the room. In a moment of clarity, I realized that I couldn't continue living in this uncertainty. I had to make a choice, not just for my own sanity but for my own dignity. The emotional fallout of this betrayal was just beginning, and I knew I had to prepare myself for what lay ahead. The confrontation left me reeling, an emotional wreck who felt like a fool for having trusted Amanda so blindly. I spent that night tossing and turning, unable to shake off the whirlwind of feelings swirling in my head. Anger, sadness, betrayal, confusion, they all fought for dominance, forming a cacophony that kept me from sleeping. I replayed Amanda's words over and over, trying to dissect her denials, her lies. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions at work, smiling at colleagues and pretending everything was fine, but inside I was a tempest. I couldn't look at Amanda without feeling an overwhelming wave of resentment. Every time she glanced at me with that half-hearted smile of hers, I felt a stab of anger. It was as if she couldn't even muster the decency to feel guilty. The more I thought about it, the more infuriated I became. I needed to know everything. I had to confront her again, but this time I wouldn't be unprepared. I decided to document everything I could find: text messages, receipts, and even photos. I had my phone on me at all times, ready to catch her slipping up again. The idea of having tangible evidence fueled my resolve, but it also consumed me. I was becoming obsessed, and I could feel the strain leaking into other aspects of my life. Finally, I hit the jackpot. One rainy Thursday evening, as I was getting ready to head home from work, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a screenshot of a conversation between Amanda and some guy named Ryan. I didn't recognize the name, but the messages were unmistakable. They were flirtatious, filled with inside jokes and affection that should have been reserved for me. I felt sick to my stomach. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll make sure Jake's working late." Read one of the texts. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. I took a deep breath and forced myself to reply to the anonymous sender, hoping for more information. "Who are you?" I typed quickly. "What do you know about Amanda?" The response came almost immediately. "Just a friend. She talks about you a lot, but her heart is elsewhere." I didn't know how to process that. I felt rage bubbling up, ready to explode. I decided it was time to confront Amanda again, but this time I wouldn't be gentle. I was done with her lies. When I got home, I found her sitting on the couch, flipping through her phone as usual. I glared at her, the fire in my gut roaring to life. "We need to talk." She looked up, feigning innocence. "What's wrong this time, Jake?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the texts. "Who the hell is Ryan?" Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought I saw guilt flash across her features. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but I could see through her flimsy facade. "Don't lie to me, Amanda. I have proof." I shouted, my voice rising in desperation. "You think I'm some kind of idiot for not noticing. This time you can't talk your way out of this." Opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, she crossed her arms defensively and tried to regain control of the situation. "You're just overreacting. I told you it's just work friends. You don't know the whole story." "I know enough," I shot back, feeling the rage boiling up inside me. "You're betraying me. You've been lying to my face, and I deserve better than this." The confrontation escalated. Amanda's mask slipped further as she lashed out, accusing me of being controlling and paranoid. She turned the tables, trying to make me feel guilty for questioning her. I could feel my heart racing as the reality of her betrayal settled in like a heavy stone in my chest. "You're being ridiculous," she spat, her voice thick with disdain. "I can't believe you accuse me of cheating. You should be more trusting." Trusting? My mind raced as I tried to wrap my head around her audacity. "Trusting? You've shattered my trust, Amanda. You had sex with someone else. How am I supposed to trust you ever again?" The silence that followed was deafening. I watched her face, searching for any sign of remorse, any hint that she understood the hurt she had caused. But instead, she looked angry, angry that I dared to confront her about her lies. In that moment, I realized that this was no longer about salvaging our marriage. It was about self-preservation. She had chosen a different path, and I was no longer willing to walk alongside her. I felt a newfound strength surge within me, fueled by the pain she had inflicted. I was done being the one who absorbed the hurt. "I'm not going to keep doing this, Amanda," I said firmly, my voice steady. "You need to figure out what you want, because I won't be part of this charade anymore. I turned and walked out of the room, my heart pounding. I knew this wasn't just the end of a conversation, it was the beginning of a battle. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to leap into the unknown. But one thing was clear: I wouldn't let her drag me down any longer. The emotional roller coaster was only just beginning, and I was determined to navigate it with my head held high. I had to think carefully about my next steps. The journey ahead would be painful, but I was ready to confront the reality of my marriage. I had begun to realize that sometimes you have to accept the loss to find your own path forward. That night was restless. I tossed and turned in our bed, which suddenly felt too big and empty. The silence was deafening, echoing my swirling thoughts. My mind replayed the confrontation over and over, and I couldn't shake Amanda's disingenuous expressions. Her defensive walls were built high, and it was clear she had no intention of taking responsibility for her actions. I lay there, feeling isolated in my pain, as if the love that once filled this space had evaporated. The next morning I woke up feeling like I had been hit by a truck. I had hardly slept, and the exhaustion weighed heavy on my shoulders. As I got ready for work, I found myself glancing at Amanda, who was sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone. Her calm demeanor infuriated me. It was as if nothing had happened. I knew she was hiding something deep down, but the facade she put on was almost infuriatingly impressive. I headed to work, my mind buzzing with thoughts of the affair and the confrontation. I felt like I was living in a surreal nightmare. At the office, I struggled to focus. My coworkers noticed my distraction, asking if I was all right. I smiled and nodded, but I felt like a fraud. I was breaking inside, and yet I was expected to maintain the same routine. Throughout the day, I couldn't shake off the images of Amanda and Ryan together, laughing, flirting, sharing moments that should have been ours. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness, but more than anything, I felt a surge of determination. I couldn't let this betrayal define me. I needed to take control of my life. After work, I went to a bar, seeking refuge in the familiar atmosphere. I sat alone, nursing a drink, letting the surroundings drown out the chaos in my head. That's when I received another text message from the unknown number. I saw her again with Ryan last night. They looked really cozy. The anger bubbled back to the surface. I was furious at the thought of Amanda with someone else, but I also felt a twinge of gratitude for this anonymous whistleblower. I needed to confront her again, and this time I would do it with undeniable evidence. I drove home, my heart pounding with each passing moment. When I walked in, I found Amanda in the same spot as earlier, her back to me as she settled into her TV show. I took a deep breath, knowing this conversation would be different. "Amanda, we need to talk again," I said, my voice steady yet firm. She turned to me, surprise flickering across her face. "What now? Is this about Ryan again?" "Yes, actually. I just got a message saying you were with him last night," I replied, feeling the tension rise. She rolled her eyes, the annoyance in her voice evident. "I told you, Jake, it's not what you think. I was just out with friends after work. I needed some time away from you." "Time away from me?" I echoed, incredulous. "You've been spending more time with him than with me. How can you possibly think that's okay?" I took a step closer, my resolve hardening. "I've been told that you two are getting really cozy. If you're trying to downplay this, it's not working. You are cheating on me, and you know it." The look in her eyes shifted from annoyance to something else: fear, guilt. It was hard to tell. "Stop it, Jake. You're being paranoid. You're making this into something it's not." I pulled out my phone and handed it to her. "Read this. This is the reality you're living in. I'm not making anything up." She hesitated, glancing over the message. I watched her expression change as she read the words. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of vulnerability. But then the defensive armor clamped back down, hardening her features once more. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "It's just some jealous person trying to stir drama. You're going to believe some random text instead of me." I couldn't believe her audacity. "Amanda, you're the one who's been betraying my trust. I'm not just some jealous husband. I'm the guy you swore to love and cherish." I stepped back, feeling the intensity of the situation envelop me. The emotional toll was heavy, and I could feel tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. "I just want the truth. If you're not happy, just say it." I can handle that, but I can't handle all these lies." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You're making me out to be the bad guy here. I've done nothing wrong. If you weren't so busy with work, maybe I wouldn't need to seek attention from someone else." The audacity of her words sent a surge of anger coursing through me. "So this is my fault. You're blaming me for your infidelity. You think I'm sitting around ignoring you. I work hard to provide for us, Amanda." Her silence was telling. I could see the gears turning in her mind, and I held my breath, waiting for her to finally acknowledge her wrongdoing. But instead, she remained defensive, her walls firmly in place. In that moment, I felt a shift within myself. I realized I was tired of fighting for someone who didn't want to be fought for. I was done. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the decision I was about to make. "Maybe it is time for a break," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I think we need some time apart. I can't keep living like this, Amanda. If you want to be with him, then go, but I refuse to be a pawn in your game." Her expression shifted, surprise giving way to anger. "You can't mean that. We're married." "Marriage is built on trust, Amanda," I replied, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "And right now we don't have any. I'm not going to stand by while you throw our life away. Not anymore." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, a mixture of rage and disbelief painted across her face. I felt a rush of freedom mingled with sorrow. It was a hard decision, but I knew deep down that I was fighting for my own peace of mind now. I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my life, and I felt empowered by it. As I settled into my own space for the night, I realized that the hardest part of this was still ahead of me. I had to figure out what life looked like after Amanda, and I didn't have all the answers. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, and I was determined to come out stronger on the other side. The days that followed were a mixture of confusion and clarity. I moved into the guest room, which felt like an exile and a relief at the same time. Each time I passed Amanda in the hall, a wave of resentment washed over me. She was so nonchalant, as if the weight of our crumbling relationship didn't bother her. I would hear her laughter coming from the living room, and it twisted the knife deeper. How could she be so carefree while I was drowning in despair? I focused on work and tried to distract myself from the turmoil at home. I started talking to some friends, sharing bits of my story. It felt good to let the weight off my chest, and they offered support. One friend, Mark, even suggested I consider therapy to help process everything. I didn't think I needed it at first, but the idea began to grow on me. Maybe an objective perspective would help me sort through the mess Amanda had left behind. One afternoon, I decided to take the plunge and set up an appointment. Walking into that therapist's office was nerve-wracking. I felt exposed, vulnerable. But as I started talking about my situation, I realized how deeply the betrayal had cut me. I talked about the love I once felt, the trust I had invested in Amanda, and how it all seemed to evaporate overnight. The therapist listened patiently, offering insights that were hard to digest but necessary. "Jake, it's important to acknowledge that your feelings are valid," she said gently. "You've been betrayed, and it's okay to feel angry and hurt, but you also have to find a way to move forward. What do you want for your future?" Her question hung in the air, heavy and profound. In that moment, I realized I wanted peace, not just for myself, but for the life I envisioned. I pictured a relationship built on trust, mutual respect, and love. Amanda had taken that away, and I had to find a way to reclaim it for myself. Over the next few weeks, I dedicated myself to healing. I signed up for a gym membership, started jogging in the mornings, and picked up hobbies I had long neglected. I even reconnected with my love for painting, something that had been buried under the weight of my marriage. With every brushstroke, I felt the tension release. It was therapeutic to channel my emotions into art, and slowly, I began to find joy in my own company again. Despite Amanda's attempts to engage in casual conversations, I maintained my distance. She'd ask about my day or bring me coffee, but I could see through her facade. She seemed to be playing the part of the concerned wife, but I wasn't buying it anymore. One evening, she caught me painting in the living room, my easel set up by the window. "Wow, I didn't know you still painted," she said, leaning against the doorway. I shrugged, not planning to engage. It's a hobby I'm getting back into. She stepped closer, feigning interest. Can I see what you're working on? I hesitated, then turned the canvas slightly away. Not really, just working through some stuff. Her face fell, disappointment etched in her features. You don't have to shut me out, Jake. I'm still your wife. I met her gaze, the hurt in my voice barely restrained. You stopped being my wife the moment you started lying to me. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. I could see her resolve falter, and for a moment I thought she might finally acknowledge the pain she had caused. But instead she retreated, her expression a mix of anger and frustration. Fine, keep your walls up, she snapped, her voice cold. But don't act surprised when you end up alone. I didn't reply, letting her words hang in the air like an acrid scent. It stung, but I refused to let her manipulation control my feelings anymore. I was learning to stand my ground, and I was starting to feel proud of that. As days turned into weeks, I found myself distancing further from Amanda. I focused on my healing journey, attending therapy sessions and seeking strength in supportive friendships. Mark became a close confidant, offering a listening ear and encouragement. He was the kind of friend who reminded me that I was worth more than the betrayal I had endured. Then, one night, as I sat on my balcony, sipping a glass of wine and watching the sunset, I received a text from the anonymous number. I want to meet. There's more you need to know about Amanda and Ryan. My heart raced as I read the message. I couldn't believe it. Part of me felt apprehensive, but another part of me was curious. I wanted to know everything, to have all the pieces of the puzzle before making any decisions about my future. I quickly typed back, agreeing to meet the next day. The next evening, I arrived at a quiet cafe, my mind racing with anticipation and anxiety. When I saw a figure sitting at a table in the corner, I felt my heart pounding. It was a woman in her late 20s, with dark hair and sharp features. She looked up as I approached, and I could see the apprehension in her eyes. Jake, she asked hesitantly. I nodded, taking a seat across from her. You have information about Amanda. She swallowed hard, glancing around as if checking for eavesdroppers. Yeah, I do. I didn't want to get involved, but I couldn't just watch her hurt you like this. I've seen them together more than once. They're close. I leaned in, my heart pounding. Close how? She hesitated, then looked me square in the eyes. I witnessed them on several dates. They're not just friends, Jake. They're sleeping together. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt sick at the idea of my wife with another man. I knew it, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. But why come to me? She sighed, clearly conflicted. Because you deserve to know the truth. I've seen him pick her up after work, taking her to dinner, and they're always so intimate. She's not being honest with you, and I couldn't let you go on being deceived. As she shared more details, I felt a mixture of anger and sorrow wash over me. Everything I had feared was coming to light, and it hurt more than I could have imagined. But amidst the pain, I sensed a newfound clarity. This was the truth I needed to finally sever the ties that bound me to a woman who had betrayed me so deeply. I thanked her for sharing the information, my mind racing with the implications. I needed to confront Amanda once more, but this time, it would be different. This would be the moment I would reclaim my life, a chance to finally end this painful chapter and move forward on my own terms. The realization was both terrifying and liberating. I was ready to step into the unknown, to confront the reality of our marriage and embrace the freedom that awaited me. The confrontation loomed over me like a dark cloud, but I felt a sense of resolve I hadn't experienced since discovering Amanda's betrayal. Armed with the knowledge of her affair, I knew this was it. I had to confront her one last time. This time it would be about the truth, not just the lies she had spun for so long. That evening I found Amanda in the kitchen preparing dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the air, and for a fleeting moment I was reminded of the woman I once loved, the woman who used to make our home feel warm and inviting. But that warmth had turned to something colder, more sinister. I took a deep breath and steeled myself for what lay ahead. Amanda, we need to talk, I said, my voice steady but firm. She turned to me, a hint of annoyance crossing her face. What now, Jake? Can't you see I'm busy? I need you to put everything down and listen, I replied, trying to keep my tone even. This is important." Her irritation was palpable as she set down the wooden spoon, crossing her arms defensively. "Fine, what is it?" I took a moment to gather my thoughts, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "I met someone who has been watching you and Ryan. They told me everything." Her eyes widened, and for a second I thought I saw a flicker of fear. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play coy with me, Amanda. I know you. Two are sleeping together. You're not fooling anyone anymore." I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I laid it all out there. Her reaction was immediate. "That's not true. You're just trying to make me look bad." "Make you look bad?" I scoffed. "You're doing a fantastic job of that yourself. You've lied to me for months, and I can't believe you still think you can deny it." The tension in the room escalated, and I could see her trying to think her way out of the corner I had backed her into. "You don't understand. I needed someone," she pleaded, her voice rising in pitch. "You've been so distant, so consumed with work. I felt alone." "Alone?" I echoed, my voice dripping with incredulity. "You chose to cheat instead of talk to me. You could have come to me and expressed your feelings, but you didn't. Instead, you went behind my back, destroyed our marriage, and threw away everything we built together." She opened her mouth to argue, but then snapped it shut, the realization of her own actions settling heavily in the air. I watched as she shifted from anger to regret, her mask of defensiveness faltering. "You don't understand," she said, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "I thought I was doing what I needed. I thought I could find happiness elsewhere." "Happiness?" I shot back. "You think sleeping with another man is going to make you happy? You destroyed our relationship for a fleeting thrill." Her shoulders slumped as the fight seemed to drain from her. "I didn't mean for it to go this far, Jake. I thought I could keep it separate." I felt a pang of sorrow for the woman she once was, but that sorrow quickly turned to anger. "You can't keep this separate. You broke my trust and you shattered the foundation of our marriage. You need to understand the consequences of your actions." She looked at me, tears brimming in her eyes. I recognized the woman I once loved, caught in a web of her own making. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why did you?" I pressed, feeling my own emotions rise. "How can I ever believe you again?" "I do." "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible, as if she was just coming to terms with the magnitude of what she had done. "I messed up, Jake. I really did." There was a long silence as we both absorbed the weight of the moment. I felt my heart breaking all over again, but this time it was different. I had the strength to confront the truth, and that truth was that I couldn't stay in this relationship any longer. "I can't do this anymore, Amanda," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've made your choice. You chose him over us, and I won't be a second option in my own marriage." Her face fell, the reality of my words hitting her like a slap. "What are you saying? Is this really how it ends?" "Yes," I replied, feeling the finality of my decision wash over me. "I think it's best for both of us to separate. I need to focus on healing and finding what makes me happy again, and I can't do that while I'm drowning in the lies you've created." Amanda opened her mouth to protest, but I held up my hand. "I've made up my mind. I'm not going to be a prisoner in a relationship built on deceit. I deserve better, and so do you." Her tears fell freely now, and I felt an overwhelming mixture of sympathy and resolve. I stood firm, knowing that I had to stick to my decision no matter how hard it was. "I just need time to process this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you." "I know," I said softly, trying to maintain a semblance of compassion amidst the pain. "But intention doesn't change the reality of what's happened. You've hurt me deeply, and it's something I can't just forget." With that, I turned and walked away, feeling the weight of the world lift from my shoulders. I knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but I was ready to embrace the unknown. I had taken back my power, and I felt a newfound sense of freedom. As I left the room, I couldn't shake the mixture of emotions swirling within me: sadness, anger, relief. I knew that breaking free from Amanda wouldn't be easy, but it was the first step toward reclaiming my life. I was determined to heal and rebuild. In the days that followed, I focused on getting my life back on track. I spent time with friends, started exploring new hobbies, and even began volunteering at a local charity. Each day felt like a small victory as I worked on creating a new version of myself, one that was unapologetically free from the pain of the past. I still felt moments of sadness as memories of Amanda surfaced, but each time I was reminded of the betrayal, I felt stronger. I was learning to accept what had happened and to channel my energy into healing and growth. It was a long journey ahead, but I was finally ready to embrace it. I was no longer defined by Amanda's choices. I was ready to redefine myself on my own terms. I knew I had the power to create a happier, more fulfilling life. The road might be bumpy, but I was determined to walk it with strength and resilience. And that was something worth fighting for. As I settled into this new phase of life, it became clear to me that the journey of healing was just as important as the confrontation itself. I began to understand that while Amanda's betrayal had brought unimaginable pain, it had also opened the door for self-discovery. I had spent years defined by the relationship, and now I had the opportunity to figure out who I was outside of it. I continued my therapy sessions, diving deeper into my emotions and learning how to cope with the aftermath of betrayal. I learned about boundaries, about self-worth, and about the importance of communication, all lessons that would serve me well in the future. Gradually, the pain of Amanda's infidelity transformed into motivation. I went back to painting, pouring my heart into each brushstroke, creating pieces that reflected my journey and emotional growth. The first weekend after the separation, I decided to take a trip to the beach, something I hadn't done in years. I needed space to breathe, and the thought of the calming ocean waves felt like a balm for my soul. I packed my bags, threw my easel in the car, and set off. The drive was liberating. I felt like I was shedding layers of my old self with every mile. When I arrived, the salty air whisked through my hair and filled my lungs, invigorating me. I set up my easel on the sandy shore and let the beauty of the ocean wash over me. As I painted, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The sunsets were breathtaking, and with each stroke, I found myself letting go of the anger and sadness that had lingered for far too long. I met a few people during my stay, artists, travelers, and locals. They shared their stories, and I realized that I wasn't alone in my struggles. Each person had faced their own hardships and had come through stronger. I felt a sense of camaraderie that reminded me of the beauty of human connection. One evening, as I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I realized how far I had come. I reflected on the pain of my marriage, the betrayal, and the heartbreak. But instead of feeling bitter, I felt grateful. Grateful for the lessons learned, for the strength I had found within myself, and for the chance to start anew. The trip invigorated me, and when I returned home, I felt ready to embrace whatever came next. I started taking classes at a local community center, exploring new interests and meeting new people. I even signed up for a painting exhibition, something I had only dreamed of before. Each day was an opportunity to grow, and I was determined not to take it for granted. As I settled into my new routine, I also had to deal with the practical aspects of the separation. I moved forward with the divorce paperwork, realizing that closing this chapter was necessary for my emotional well-being. I still had moments of doubt and sadness, especially when I would see reminders of Amanda in familiar places, but I learned to acknowledge those feelings without letting them consume me. One day, I received a message from Amanda. It was simple, a request to meet so we could discuss the divorce. As I read her text, I felt a swell of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to lay out the hurt and betrayal one last time. Another part of me recognized that I had already said everything that needed to be said. When I agreed to meet, I was filled with apprehension. We met at a small cafe, the same place we had visited during happier times. As I stepped inside, I felt the weight of memories flooding back, but I had changed. I felt grounded in my decisions, and I was no longer the man who had been shattered by her betrayal. When Amanda walked in, her face was a mixture of apprehension and regret. She looked different, more vulnerable. As we sat down, I noticed she was fidgeting, avoiding eye contact. "Thanks for meeting me," she started, her voice soft. "I know things have been rough." I cut in, determined to set the tone. "I'm not here to rehash the past, Amanda. I think we both know where we stand. We need to finalize this divorce." Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt a momentary pang of sympathy. "I never wanted to hurt you, Jake. I was lost and made terrible choices." "I get that," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "But it doesn't change what happened. I think it's best if we both move on. I hope you find whatever it is you're searching for." She nodded, wiping away her tears. "I'm sorry for everything, I really am. You deserved so much." Better, her apology felt genuine, but it was too little, too late. I had already begun to heal, to find my own way. "Thank you, but I need to focus on my own path now." We exchanged a few more words, logistics about the divorce, discussions about splitting our assets. It felt surreal to be sitting there with the woman who once filled my life with love and laughter. But the reality was clear. Our love had been tainted, and it was time to let go. As we finished our conversation, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The pain of betrayal would always be a part of my story, but it didn't have to define me. I had learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of communication. I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it may hold. Walking away from that cafe, I felt lighter. I had closed the door on a painful chapter of my life, and I stepped out into the open air, ready to embrace the new adventures waiting ahead of me. I was no longer tied to the past. I was free to explore the possibilities of a bright, new future. In that moment, I realized that despite the heartbreak, I was stronger and more resilient than I had ever been. I had learned to navigate the storm, and now I was ready to soar. Life was waiting for me, and I was finally ready to embrace it with open arms.